Yeah, it takes it about 30 seconds to do all the link ups and everything. Sort of like NI4CE, you got to remember to wait a second before you talk or give the repeaters a chance to link up. All right, we are now streaming again. So this afternoon's last program will be the title I got was Protocol Development for JS8 for Emergency Nets. And Gordon was our bookends today. He did the first presentation on the ham radio emergency ventilator. Now he's going to end the day with JS8 for Nets protocol, or whatever that long title is a minute ago. And you may go ahead and take it away. I will mute everyone else except yourself. And are you on with your audio?
Okay, can you hear me there?
Yes, sir. You are good to go. So you may go ahead and take it away.
This is a lot simpler, and I don't think it'll take a full hour, so we'll get through this quickly. We're going to talk a little bit about JS8 for Nets. First, I'm going to make another shameless plug for our March 19th exercise, Whirlwind Boom 2021. The large-scale exercise desired to increase interoperability between a bunch of different groups that work together during emergencies in Florida, 7 to 9 p.m. Friday evening, March 19th. This is a very short exercise, just 2 hours. The idea is that a massive tornado volley has crossed the state of Florida. We're avoiding normal names so we don't get charged with impersonating anyone. And we had a terrorist bombing in Johnsonville, which is located right up there in the state, which damages the internet. We have an incident action plan and a exercise plan. These are enormous documents. The action plan is only 4 or 5 pages. The other's very long. And we're looking for anybody who wants to be involved. We'll take walk-ons. We're going to have a resource net this morning at 10 o'clock. We held a Zoom meeting with the net controls and got them squared away. So we're going to have different nets, a resource net and a command net on HF. We have a command net on shares. And then we have WinLink participation. We'll have PSK31. We'll have JS8. Anything you can think of will be involved in this exercise. I'd also like to mention that we've created a shelter server. I've now upgraded that so it now operates with the Buster operating system for Raspberry Pi 3B Plus or the 4. It's a great way to provide a web server so that everyone in a shelter can use their own cell phone to read the information that your EOC or your group wants to put out for them at the shelter. What we're going to go over with first, some of this will be a little review for everybody. Why is this useful? How does FT8 JS8 work their magic? How can we dramatically increase net communication ability with this kind of a technique? Possibly a little bit about how to get them working on your station, and then whatever you guys want to go over. So first thing is, why is this useful? Okay, well, this is a curve that shows the expected noise level at various frequencies in the HF range. One line is rural quiet land, which shows declining noise at higher frequencies. The other is urban noisy level, which has considerably more noise. This is data from 1971. If we were to look at today, the urban noise level might even be worse. Typical receiver, typically sensitivity is in this range here. And so as you can see, the noise is just enough to really be bothersome with the typical receiver. We now have more volunteers in emergency communication that live in restricted HOAs, apartments next to solar powered neighbors that are generating noise. They may have their own solar power systems like I do. There are many, many wall warts, televisions, LED lights, and lots of other noise sources. This is actual data that we took from a hardened installation here in Alachua County, and it shows the kind of noise. The noise floor of the spectrum analyzer that we were using at this point was around -100 dBm. These are in dBm. And the noise that we were receiving when we used measurement tools on the roof of this thing were 40 dB stronger. I mean, vastly stronger noise levels. just being radiated by all the equipment within this hardened equipment. We did the parking lot, we did the roof, we did lots of other places. So if you're helping out with a group that's using a government structure, there's a good chance that you're having problems with noise. Well, the person who invented some of these great new systems was this guy right here, Joe Taylor. He's currently age 79. He's famous for all kind of physics stuff that he's done. About 2 decades ago, he began developing advanced modulation techniques. There was an article published in QST on December 2001 where he introduced new software for VHF meteor scatter communications. And he's added a zillion new kinds of protocols and taken some away since then. This gentleman, it's a slightly fuzzy picture, is Jordan Scherer. Jordan took advantage of FT8 modulation, which was open source and in code. He lives in an apartment in Atlanta, how apropos, and he had adopted this modulation so he could provide a new software, which first called FT8 call, then it became JS8, and it basically allows you to add networking layers and communication layers on top of FT8, and it functions a lot more like old-fashioned packet than FT8, where FT8 basically just lets you make very simple communications in a network, in a contest-like connection. JS8 allows you to make real communication, just talk. This leveraged the processing of sound cards, which can do audio processing, like the previous gentleman was showing us with ways you can play with those things yourselves. Examples of sound card systems include RTTY, PSK31, multiple MFSK systems, JT9, JT65, Olivia, Thor, AX.25. This is the fastest growing portion of amateur radio, are these sound card modes. When Joe Taylor built this stuff, he did not expect it to be used at HF. He thought it was going to be used for moon bounce. But people at HF took advantage of it because of its incredible low signal detection. Typically, if you're doing single sideband or FM, you need a signal to noise ratio of 4 to 10, about 6 to 10 dB signal to noise ratio, if you're going to comprehend the signal that's coming at you. But these modes, when referenced to the same audio bandwidths, can pick out signals that would be 10 or 20 dB below the aggregate noise on that 2500 hertz bandwidth. So they have enormous advantages, as much as 30 dB advantages. They're actually more sensitive than Morse code, and yet they're narrower than Morse code. How on earth can this be done? And the answer is that noise is often white. It's evenly distributed. As you increase your bandpass, the noise increases by the square root of the increase in your bandwidth. But if you zero in on just a tiny segment of the bandpass, you can throw away a ton of noise. It gives you an enormous advantage. CW operators have done this for years by using toroids and other means of constructing very narrow filters to give themselves an advantage. In addition, these newer modes take advantage of redundancy. So they scatter the information throughout the message so that bits and pieces of it are present in more than one place. So if you have a static crash or something else, there's a good chance you can still recover the intended message, even though part of it was lost. They also use time synchronization, which gives the detector a much better chance of figuring out what is coming in. Net result of all this is that you typically have messages that either pass or fail. There's little in between. It's not like PSK or voice or CW. The computer is doing all of the intelligent processing, and it'll give you either the message or it will be unable to pull it out. FT8 was developed and released on June 29, 2017. Frankie Taylor designed 8-tone frequency shift modulation. Packet is frequency shift keying with just 2 tones. FT8 has 8 tones. Because it has 8 tones, it can send 3 bits at a whack. So within 3 frames, it can send enough information to send an ASCII character. This is a graph of the QSO submissions to a DX group during the year of, I think this is 2017. You can see that it started out the year with folks doing CW and phone and various digital modes, and then FT8 came out and it just took over. And by the end of the year, other digital modes had disappeared. Phone was down, CW was down, FT8 was just climbing through the roof. So it breathed new life into amateur radio communications, particularly because the sunspot cycle was so low. These are the typical decoding thresholds. So typically for single sideband, you need 10 dB signal to noise. For CW, you can go all the way down to -15. It won't be fun, but you can do it. FT4 will go down to -18. FT8 will go down to -20, and JT65 moon bounce will go down to -24 dB compared to +10. So these are huge advantages. The other advantage that these systems have is frequently they will allow you to decode many conversations occurring simultaneously. So this is an example on the left of FLDGI decoding simultaneous conversations, and on the right, WSJTX decoding multiple simultaneous conversations. Okay, a little bit more into how this works. This is all based on very narrow filters. The problem is if you get too narrow, you actually can't hear the signal anymore. It mushes out the signal. So there is a problem. And JS8 gets around that because of its ability to use very well constructed modulations and very well constructed filters. It can actually be narrower than Morse code and have enormous advantages over it. I think I already went over this one. Very tough to copy if you don't have pretty good signal to noise ratio with single sideband, but with JS8, you can go a lot lower. JS8, building on FT8 modulation, has a defined message length of 77 bits. That's used in FT8, FT4, and MSK144, 3 bits of which declare which of 8 message types are going to be encoded by the remaining 74 bits. These are the tags that are used for the various types of fields that can be assigned after that. And so one of those is F71 tag, which gives you free text up to 13 characters. So the others do call signs and reports that would be useful in a contest. This free text field characteristic of FT8 gave Jordan Scherer the ability to create JS8. In the source encoded message, 74 bits plus the 3-bit message type is extended to 82 bits. Then there are 14 bits of cyclic redundancy check added, gets us to 91 bits. And they almost have a doubling of the length with 83 bits of redundancy. That's huge redundancy. You get to a 174-bit code word. And then there's a, I don't understand the next part, but there's a redundancy grid that includes verification that the signal is valid. At the RF layer, you take this stuff that's been created and you use 8 tones, continuous phase, that's important, frequency shift keying. The tones are only 6 1/4 hertz apart. Each tone, a single frame gives you 8 bits of data, not a single tone. 3 successive bits are grouped together in a table called a gray code to discover which tone will be transmitted. The tones are selected to minimize frequency changes so you don't get Doppler shift problems. There's a thing called a Costas array that's transmitted 3 times, and it turns out this is used to set up the time synchronization. So although you have to get within a couple seconds at the beginning, the Costas arrays allow the system to zero in exactly on the time that was used by that particular person's transmitter, giving a fantastic time sync. They use amplitude shaping at the beginning and the ending. But what's really fascinating is how carefully they change the frequencies on those tones. They very slowly and carefully make frequency changes so they don't generate lots of sidebands that would otherwise result. And as a result, this is regular old frequency shift keying, which has wide sidebands. And FT4, for example, just extremely narrow skirts, very little side bands, and that allows you to pack loads and loads of these frequencies right next to signals right next to each other without them interfering with each other. So for instance, you can pack in 40 FT8 pieces in a 2 kilohertz slice of spectrum. If you've ever watched what happens during field day, this is what happens. Okay, so I wanted to talk about how to leverage all these advantages that I've just gone over for a net. So the net that I was working with is a federal net called the SHARES net, Shared High Frequency Resources. And EOCs and other groups that are associated with the government can get licensure for these systems very easily. It gives you access to federal frequencies that are not in the amateur bands and don't really have much QRM. Occasionally have to deal with over the horizon radar, but other than that, there's not much interference. They tried to cover, these nets are for backup communications for authorities during disasters, and their practice nets cover very wide geographical areas like the entire southeastern United States. So they run into skip zone problems. They're trying to use higher frequency, among their frequencies, they have lots of frequencies, which have lower D-layer losses, but they have skip zones. So you can end up with a problem of not being able to hear various people in the net if you use the higher frequencies. They have the advantage that they can use both voice and digital on the same frequency. It's not like ham radio where you can only use voice or digital. They can shift back and forth between the two on the same net. So what we did in our protocol, we took the passband that is normally used for JS8 or FT8, and we divided it up. So the first portion between about 500 hertz and 1,000 hertz is reserved for the net controls. Now, frequently, these nets will have 2 net controls to give them a layer of redundancy and reception. And there's plenty of space in here to put 2 net controls, and we can actually have them running different speeds. We can have one of them running normal speed, we can have one of them running turbo speed. In the next 1,500 hertz or so, we can spread out the persons who would like to check into this group by some a priori simple heuristics of what's your call sign, things like that, and allow them to just somewhat spread themselves out. You still have the chance that 2 of them will pick the same portion of the band pass. But for the most part, you can have a large number of people check into the net simultaneously, which you can't do really on a voice net very well. Okay, so here's an overview of the time sequence that we proposed. The first 45 seconds because each frame takes 15 seconds when using normal JS8 communications, are used for the announcement of the net and to solicit either emergency or priority messages. Then there's 30 seconds used just to listen to see if anyone has an emergency or a priority message. And in the next 30 seconds, the net control does a call up of group 1. He or she may need to break the net into multiple groups. If there's so many people that maybe 100 people need to check in. The next portion of time is used for group 1 replies. And the participants then are using frequencies higher than the net control frequencies, so everybody else can still hear the net control. It takes a little bit of time for all these people to list their call signs. We've got some software that will capture those call signs for the net control. Otherwise, we would give him time to do it by hand if he has to. And you just repeat this sequence for as many groups as you need to do. JS8 has the ability to generate call sign groups, somewhat like selective tone calling. Compile the list, and then the primary net control, sends out the list of the stations that they observed. And while they're doing this, the secondary net control is at a geographically different location, and all the participants are able to observe which stations the net control captured, which could have been automatically by this software or by hand. And then we have 30 seconds for the missing stations who didn't get heard. They get a chance to reply, and then the primary net control can take another 30 seconds to add in the ones that he picked up on the second go around. So that's the time sequence. I think it adds up to like 5 minutes. JS8 call has the ability to have groups based on call sign or geographic characteristic. So that gives us one way to break people up. And then secondly, we can split the people among frequency bands during each call up. Each call up, we're able to take about 10 to 20 stations. And a gentleman named McDonald built me software that will capture everybody who checks in and read all their call signs and assemble it into a list so the net control can send that out without having to do a whole lot of paperwork. Okay, well, that's great for check-in, but how do we move traffic? So basically, since we're giving the net controls the space between 500 and 1,000 hertz, we've got about 1,500 hertz left to be used at any time at the net control's discretion for traffic movement. So you can fit a lot of different kinds of signals into that 1,500 hertz. So for instance, you can use some of that to move traffic by JS8, which is very narrow, so you can get lots of them in, but it's very slow, so it's going to take a long time. You can also fit in PSK31 signals. That moves at about the speed of normal typing, so it's really nice. It doesn't have any error correction, however. You could use broadcast modes that have forward error correction, which will take a little bit more space, but will reduce the error count. You can even use WinLink in its narrower 15 hertz mode, such as RDOP or VARA. That gives you full error correction, and since you've got 1,500 hertz to fool with at least, you could have 3 sets of messages being moved simultaneously while net control is still able to control the net. You could even use 300 baud AX.25, the old-fashioned HF packet, to move traffic. So there's lots of techniques could be used to move traffic. Ham radio voice nets that wanted to take advantage of this protocol would need 2 different frequencies because you can't run the data techniques on voice frequencies. And typically those nets start up on voice frequencies, as do shares nets. This could be handled by simply using an AB VFO where you shift up, back and forth from the voice frequency to the digital frequency. Older radios that don't have sound cards actually have an advantage because when you're using systems like SignalLink, you can have multiple pieces of software operating at the same time. JS8, WinLink, FLDGI, all simultaneously, all decoding, and whichever one you choose to transmit with, SignalLink will suddenly key the push to talk and bingo, you're transmitting. Newer radios that have built-in sound cards that you're using generally have a driver that will only accept one program at a time, and so you can't use all these software to decode simultaneously. You're stuck, and you need to find some other technique. Okay, so how do you get this working? For some of you folks, this will just be a review. We basically have 3 systems that we need to get going. We can even use a vacuum tube system. We can manually tune. There's an online manual for this. We've got to get audio, both receive and transmit working. Essentially, we've got to get both the speaker and the microphone connector. We've got to get push to talk working. And we'd like to have frequency control and measurement. We could, but we can do without that and just spin the dial. Getting audio connected. Well, this has gotten really simpler. So typically, you're going to use some sort of a menu system, and you're hunting for devices that have a giveaway name that shows that it's a codec or that it has it's plugged into a USB port. Typically, it looks like this, where your input, you have a drop down, and you'll pick up some sort of a codec here instead of my speaker system and microphones that I've got in this picture. And that connects up your audio. This is relatively standardized in all of the applications these days. WinLink, WSJPX, FLDG, all of them work very similarly. So it's easy to connect your audio. Push to talk, basically for a lot of folks who don't understand push to talk, this is just connecting a terminal to ground, typically. It activates the transmitter and stops the receiver. You can't do this with just a button, however, because human reflexes aren't fast enough. So the easiest way to do it is a sound card device such as a SignalLink just listens, and when it sees incoming audio on the transmit line, it uses a transistor or a relay to close the push to talk. The fancier new radios use cat control to do this, computer aided tuning, and they send a command to the transmitter. Older systems use the Vox system. Be sure to turn the delay all the way down as low as you can get it. USB cable, if you're using a rig to connect to the signal link, goes to the signal link. Older rig, if you're using one of these systems, you tell it, well, my push-to-talk mechanism is just going to be plain old Vox. And the Vox in this case is done by the signal link. No cat control needed. Pretty straightforward. The signal link uses the right-hand channel to pick up a push-to-talk tone. It's constant, so even modes that don't have a constant output keep the relay closed. And in FLDGI, this is how you set that. Newer radio, you need to find out what port your driver is on. And then once you find it, the port will look something like this. Silicon Lab CP210X USB to UART is on COM14. So that is an example that this person's ICOM 7300 is using COM14. You go into the software and tell it, I'm using cat control for an ICOM 7300. It's on COM14 or COM4 or whatever. The baud rate is this. My push-to-talk method is going to be computer-aided tuning. And this is the interesting part. This software has the ability to switch the frequency of the rig in such a way that it can transmit an audio tone that's not exactly what you would expect, but is advantageously chosen into the 1500 to 2500 hertz range, which reduces IMD products. And so that's a pretty slick technique. If you can't do that because your radio isn't computer aided tuned, then you just select no, and it just uses the regular bandpass of your radio and it still works fine. Controlling the frequency is completely optional. You can easily do any of these modes with plain old Heathkit vacuum tube radios. Most of these newer modes are using upper sideband. There are a few modes that don't care, but most of our modes do care. Computer-aided tuning, this is just non-standardized. Everybody does it differently. So you're going to have to choose the driver and the physical technique that goes with your radio. It's nice if you do have computer-aided tuning because typically it will do everything with one USB computer cable. It'll do the push-to-talk, it'll do the frequency control, it'll do the mode selection, everything with one cable. Okay, I need to talk just a little bit about timing. I mentioned to you that you've got to get within 1 or 2 seconds to make FT8 or JS8 work. And typically Windows computers are not that accurate. They only measure their timing once a week. That's not good enough. They drift way too much. So most of us just Google Dimension 4, which is a free piece of software, and load that from a group called Thinking Man Software, and it will then pick up an NNTP server somewhere on the internet, and it will set your timing good enough to make it work. However, what do you do if you're using JS8 in a disaster and you have no access to the internet? Well, it turns out that JS8 includes a nifty little system down here in the bottom right-hand side of your screen, right beside the transmit level control, which is right there. It allows you to set the timing several different ways. One of them is you can set the time drift to when you hear the transmissions finish or when you hear the transmission start, because all these people, they're all ganged together and you can tell when they all start and when they all finish. You don't even have to link this to JS8 signals, which are somewhat more rare. You can set the timing by FT8 signals on the FT8 frequencies, and then you can move your transmitter over to the JS8 frequencies and it'll be working fine. So this is really a very slick system to help people who are deployed into a disaster region. Okay, so if this is low power or if you're dealing with very low power or limited antenna, this is a system for you. And I heard yesterday about a case in Iowa in August of last year after Direcco went right through a state and destroyed everything. People were able to make communications by connecting up to the water pipes in their house because there wasn't anything else left. The trees were gone and they were able to make communications. If you're having problems with antennas, I have a list here of several different talks or papers that I've written on ways to build very simple antennas very cheaply. And that was it. Looks like I accidentally hit one of those. So when you're using this software, pick a clear spot in the frequency spectrum where nobody's transmitting and put your signal there so you don't bother everybody else. If you're using JS8, enable all the auto stuff that you can, the heartbeat and everything else. Then click on a heartbeat to see who can hear you. You'll get back responses from all those people. It has all these features of fancy storages of messages that are beyond this talk. And it even has a system that allows you to access the APRS system, and potentially send WinLink messages and potentially send your locations, but that's a little beyond me, and it's not guaranteed stuff right now. I already discussed the split system. JS8's a little different from FT8. In FT8, you just click the guy you want to talk to, and it does all the talking. JS8 is different. This is ham radio, more like what we used to do. Start typing and hit send, and then just keep typing, and it will finish sending what you want to say while it's doing its stuff. You don't have to type everything. You'll create a lot of dead air if you type everything and then hit the send button. This slide set is actually for a similar talk is available on the internet. This particular talk is going to be available through Daryl, and that is indeed the end. So I'm going to see if I can find you guys again, and then I will take any questions that you've got.
All right, you now may unmute yourselves and ask or raise your hand or do it in the chat feature.
I'm curious how many of the participants have done JS8 so far.
I'm sad to admit I'm behind the curve. I haven't tried it or FT8 yet. Always seems like every time I'm going to sit down and do a Raspberry Pi controlling it, something else comes along, takes the time, and then I think, well, I'll try tomorrow, and tomorrow never seems to come.
I'm not connected to a transmitter at this moment, but I can see if I can show you just a tiny bit of what it looks like. Oh, I get this thing to go away. Like that.
You certainly have the time, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't want to waste you guys' time either. It's a little different from FT8. I'm going to minimize you guys again. So this is what the screen looks like for JS8, it's just picking up audio right now because it's not connected to a radio. Almost all these things, you click File and then Settings. On the radio, I did that wrong. On the audio, here you're going to pick what kind of audio you've got to connect to, and normally this would be a codec or something like that. On the radio, I have it selected for no radio right now and just voice operation. So this is how you would set it up if you were just going to use a signal link. The general stuff, you put in your call sign. Here's the call sign groups, and this is a really cool part of JS8. You can invent call sign groups. Now you can address these people. Only those people will respond. Everybody can see it, but only those people will respond. So that doesn't exist in FT8. So kind of a neat little thing. For reporting stuff, you can connect up to some fancy stuff on the internet. I haven't done as much with that. The frequencies, it has a way for you can install custom frequencies. That's not terribly important. And then the user interface, you can set colors and things like that. That's not terribly important either. The cool thing is, and I think I'm connected to my speaker, and I think when I shared the screen, I did not set this up to share the tone, so I'm not exactly sure what you guys will hear. But you can see up here, I'm set for normal plus multi. So I'm set to decode. I'm going to use normal, but I'm set to decode everything. So I'll be able to decode normal, slow, fast, turbo, whatever. I'm set to enable auto reply. So if someone sent a heartbeat, my system would reply to it. So you can see I've turned on all the goodies, and then I've created a heartbeat, which you may or may not be able to hear. You can see the time is counting down right there. And when it's done, it's done. If I wanted to send a message to a particular group, the @Alachua group, I can just select them there, and I can type something here, and it will go just to @Alachua. So the cool thing is what I can do with this. So if I want to send a directed message to @Alachua, here are the things that I can send to the members of @Alachua. For instance, if I send this command, SNR ? Their transmitters will automatically reply to me, all of them, and tell me how strong I am. I can ask for their station information, their grid location, their status, and I can ask, who are you hearing? And their transmitters will tell me automatically the first 4 stations that they're hearing. I can send them a message and ask them to automatically relay this message to another person. So I can create net relay on the fly. By knowing who they can hear, I know basically who they can talk to. So I've got all these automated network layer kind of things that don't exist in FD8, but I can do this very easily in JS8. So I can relay things through this person. I haven't even tried all the cool things that JS8 is capable of doing, just really weird things that it's capable. Down here, the display, this gets a little confusing. You can set how sensitive this thing is. And here's the timing screen where you can reset your timing if you don't have access to an internet source. That's a really cool feature for disaster nets. Okay, so that gives you guys a little bit of an overview of what JS8 has for disaster communications.
All righty. Does anyone have any questions? Our poll turned out to be interesting. We had 27 altogether that filled it in. I've been trying to keep track of our attendance. I counted 23 today total that have come and gone throughout the day. 30% from outside our section. And Gordon, that includes you. You're in Northern Florida. So it's pretty neat. So
looks like definitely Bob Burke may have a question.
Bob, go ahead. I see your hand up now.
Yeah, when you start to send your message here, does it have a place here where it takes the various transmissions and puts them together, because you can only send so many, it will only receive so many characters, during a given transmission, so that they, in case this station is receiving from more than one person, so they're able to read your message without having to jump through a bunch of hoops.
Okay, I think I know what you're asking. So in this left window, the browser window, you can see a bit of what anybody is transmitting, and you can make this bigger or smaller by grabbing things. And so everybody in the passband, it will be decoding everything that they send. Of course, it can't decode if you're transmitting, right? As long as you're not transmitting, you can watch multiple conversations going on over here. When you transmit something, if it's something very short, it will go through in one 15-second signal epoch. But if you're transmitting a more complicated message, for instance, you can send an entire paragraph, well, that will use multiple 15-second epochs. And so it's going to spread out to 4, 5, 6 frames. And move this out of the way. That button right there will tell you how long it's going to take to send the thing that you're proposing, and it counts down as you're sending it also. Move this back over. Now, when you're in a conversation, this is a lot like Packet of old times. You're connected to one person, and when you start a transmission, unless you change how the software works, it's always got your call sign and their call sign built in. So you're in a conversation with that one person. Everything that they send to you shows up in this salmon colored thing up here in black. And the stuff that you send shows up in the salmon colored area in red. So if I initiate a new message called test, looks like I have this directed at Appalachia. So I'm going to see if I can deselect that. It will then wait, before it's going to send, it's going to wait for the next boundary, and then it's going to start that transmission, which looks like it's a 15-second transmission. Just my call sign for test. And then I can halt that if I don't want it to go out. The program also includes a tune button, which is really cool to allow you to set your power level and adjust the tuner. Did that answer your question?
I believe so. It's, as I would say, if you had some message that you were trying to send, which, went, say 4 or 5, even 10 frames there, would that all remain together?
Yes. It stays together, and you can actually see an entire paragraph being constructed as the other guy replies if he's wordy. And my experience on the JS8 frequencies, I don't do a lot of this, but there's 2 different kind of hams. There's the guys that just want to say, slam bam, thank you, ma'am, and they're going to use FD8. And there's the guys that like to talk, and they're going to use JS8. And so sometimes you have to very politely say, I've got to go now. And they're usually very quick to accept that. But if you want to just have a net communication where you really couldn't have heard these folks without using a low signal technique, suppose you're in a city and you have problems with skip zones, this will allow you to do it. And you can watch everything that's going on. Give or take, when you start transmitting, you can no longer see what the other folks are sending.
Another thing there is it possible to print out the what information has been sent there? Because a lot of these EOCs want to see something in black and white.
Yes. 2 ways that I can think of to do that. The easiest way is you simply take the characters that you received and then go to a word processor of some sort and then paste them. And there it is. That's probably what I would do. There may be a way to store it somewhere inside of this thing, but I show message inbox. So apparently you can have messages stored from other people on your radio that have come in while you were not there. And I believe you can go and pick those messages back up, for example. So if you enable automatic, and by the way, the reason this is legal is 97.221C that says if you're less than 500 hertz, you can have automatic operation of the station. So you can actually have messages coming in and being relayed out by your transmitter when you're not even there. So this has the ability to create some really fascinating. So one of the guys in our group that tested this, if I remember, he sent a message through Sweden back to another station, just as a test. He had a Swedish station relay the message back to another station here, and I don't remember the exact stations he used. But it's got some amazing abilities if you're determined to make communications work.
Okay, thank you very much for that explanation.
Sure. Any other questions? I got to figure out how to get rid of this.
Now you've given me something else I got to try.
This is amazing stuff that Scherer created. It's got possibilities that are just barely being touched at the moment. And as more people who move into not so great physical situations are going to realize this is a way that I can take a really crappy antenna and communicate all over the world. It's really slick.
What if you're in like a shelter or something and you need to send some kind of text messaging? It'd be a great way QRP to be able to do that even with the sorriest antenna. Huh?
This will work. Mike, are you trying to ask a question?
Go ahead, Mike.
I just wanted to make a comment. As of today, I picked up 2 more hobbies.
Okay, great.
That's 13, Mike.
Yep.
Dead number.
Oh, well, just add another one to it. You'll be all right.
Yeah.
Well, does anybody else have any other questions or comments? For those that are left, I want to encourage you, if you have written or have a project, write it up and send it in to me via email. So we'll put it in the next issue of the Experimenter, our quarterly section technical newsletter. And we'll start hopefully working on that this coming week. But we got the presser coming out in another week or two, our monthly newsletter. It's just general news. And consider doing the speaking for TECHCON for next year. You got a year to get ready. It'll be February 25th and 26th, tentatively, at the Polk County Emergency Operations Center. We'll hopefully be past COVID. And we will do hybrid conferences from this point on. We'll have some that come in on Zoom and the rest will be in person. And we'll be able to stream it to our YouTube account to record it. So this really gives us this Zoom thing the ability to be able to expand our reach on getting information out there. So consider doing this. That's been, it doesn't take anything special, and whatever you want to present is up to you. As long as it's ham radio and technology related, you can present on it. And I asked 2 of our guys to speak. The rest pick their own programs. So that's how I prefer. I prefer the presenters to drive it, and then them to drive the. Some years it's like a theme, and some years it hasn't been. All right. So does anybody have anything else? Go ahead, Gordon.
Harold, can you send us out the URLs for all the YouTube videos?
Yeah, let me think.
Or how to find
I did put it on the TECHCON speakers list. Let me go ahead and try to drop that in again. You're in the chat. Okay. Let me go get it right now. As a matter of fact, to our new West Central Florida section YouTube page, if I can get to it here. I'm gonna go ahead and put that here on the chat right now. And I need to put a link to it on our section. As a matter of fact, well, you're not in our section, Gordon, but it went out last night on a press release to all the members of our section here. And the URL, well, you don't get it. So naturally, I'm gonna put it here in the chat right now in just a moment here. Stand by. Here we go. I'm typing it in right now. So, and they're all there. I'm going to do a little tiny editing to them over the next few weeks to clip out extraneous stuff at the beginning and end. But other than that, they'll stand as they are. And it'll be our YouTube channel. We'll be looking for. Okay, and there we go. And I believe that's it. Okay, you guys can try it to be sure it works on your computer. But we'll be looking for doing some pre-recorded videos, just, projects or whatever. It's Aries, club stuff, whatever, so just getting information out there. And it seems I've gotten a lot of positive comments on it so far. So does anybody have any comments about anything on TECHCON today you'd like to bring up? Anything you want to chat about? We're almost to our 5 o'clock time. I know folks are getting tired and ready to go have supper here pretty quick. And yes, we're in the South. It's supper. And I refuse to change. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Anybody have anything you'd like to chat about or discuss real quick? But if not, we'll go ahead and end for today. And thank you for everybody for coming to TECHCON, and thank you to our presenters that took the time to present this year. And we had some, the TECHCON met all our expectations, even if it was virtual. Anybody have anything?
Just a great vote of thanks there, Daryl. Thank you very much for this.
Well, Jeremy, thank you very much. And I guess you live up in Land O'Lakes, is that right?
I clicked the wrong thing. There we go. Yes, Land O'Lakes, kind of north part of the county there, almost to Highway 52 on 41. And I don't get, unfortunately, any of the DMR repeaters, I don't think, but now that you raised the issue, I'm going to go look again. Maybe there's another one I'm missing out on.
Yeah, it's all Fusion up there your way. They got 3 Fusion repeaters up there. I think 3 or 4. So
Yeah,
mainly it's all
right.
Fusion.
And I think there's even an XDN even, but anyway.
Yes, I think there is. I think David Krause does that. And I forget his call.
Yeah.
I forget his call sign now. He won't come to mind, but
occasionally I bring the radio down here to Tampa and I use the repeaters in Tampa or St. Pete. And I learned a few useful things there. So I do thank you all for bringing that information to the party today.
Well, that's what we're here for. So that's what it's all about. So does anybody have anything else about anything today? Questions, comments? Want to write an article for the experimenter? Tell me you're going to write one and I'll look for it in the next few months. We can't have it. Go ahead.
If I may, I just want to join you thanking the presenter for the excellent presentation that we had enjoyed today. And for everybody else that is present and participating on this TECHCON, hopefully to see everybody again next year. Thank you and goodbye.
All right, Angel. We miss you having you. I know you've been coming for a number of years now. So I don't know how many, but it's been 3 or 4 at least. And we just don't get to do Hamfest or TECHCON in person. I'm hoping DCC will be in person, but now from what the guys at Tapper were telling me today and last night, in another month they will pull the trigger, or maybe a month and a half, whether they're going to go virtual again or not. They're sort of waiting on the hotel and the government of North Carolina to tell them if they can have it or not. So they may be virtual. Hamvention's gone, so who knows? Anyone have anything else before we pull the plug? And we'll see you all next year. And we might have a miniature one, maybe just 1 or 2 sessions or something in the summer if there's an interest for it. So let us know. And if there's enough interest, we might do a mini one list, just 3 or 4 hours one afternoon, maybe in the middle of the summertime when it's too hot to go out anywhere outside to enjoy anything anyway.
I'd like to thank you, Daryl, for the great presentations and letting a Freelander in.
Hey, that's no problem. That's what we're here for. And yeah, I was surprised our attendance outside the section was that much, but I wanted to see what the Zoom would do. And this definitely drove the need to continue to do it virtual for folks that can come in from the outside that can't travel here. I mean, you know, you'd have to fly and airline, a hotel stay and rental car. And because depending on where we rotate this conference normally to different EOCs in our 10 counties. And we've rotated to Charlotte, Sarasota, Hillsborough, and Polk, four different EOCs, because they're usually, we can get them free of charge. That's the big thing. Have a facility don't cost us any money because we don't have any money to spend on it. And, and we try to rotate it throughout the section so it makes it geographically fair to everybody. Some don't drive far one year and others don't other years. And I know DCC rotates theirs around throughout the country. So try to get to everybody and reach as wide an audience as possible. And thank you for the kudos. And I thank our speakers. They're the ones that really made it go. And they put a lot of time and preparation into it. This is the first year I've not done a presentation. Yeah, give a thumbs up on the screen if you like. This is the first year I've not presented in 7. So that's very unusual. So I was prepared, but I thought, no, okay, good. We got enough. I don't have to. I knew I had enough to handle this Zoom account. Never mind trying to present to. Go ahead.
Now, I got a question. These EOC centers, do we have internet access to those?
Oh, you mean EOCs?
Yeah.
All the ones we've been to, we've had. And they have the,
reason
ones I've been to, we have.
We could, when we go back to visual instead of virtual, we could set up a camera, set up on the speakers and have both.
That was exactly on my mind. It'll be a hybrid conference where it will fulfill 2 purposes. One, it will allow us to have virtual speakers come in from the outside, but then when all the local guys are talking, the rest of the world can see it, and then we'll be able to record it as well on YouTube, which is the trouble with Zoom here. You could do the recordings through Zoom, but you don't get a lot of space. I mean, you think you get like 1 gig. That's an hour, maybe if you're lucky. And how do we record 7-8 hours of presentations without getting us noticed? Sorry, you're full. So YouTube is the easiest way to do it, to stream to that. Then the videos were there, and you can download, if you got the right plugins for your browser, you can download them and just watch them offline later if you don't, where you don't have internet access. Matter of fact, for DCC, I do that. I go download the Ham Radio 2.0. He does the nice high quality videos for it. And you can watch ARRL Tapper DCC videos. They have one video per program, and it's really, watch the one from 2019 on FPGAs. That was awesome. I got to see that one the other day finally, and now I'm going to go back and look at it again and go get try to get the slides from the Tapper website, or the handouts, which they're on there, by the way, on the Tapper website. They have all the papers archived there. You want some interesting reading, go there. That stuff is very valuable. It's very, very high quality. And I'm going to go back now and investigate that about the FPGAs. So, I mean, it's like I said, instead of 13 hobbies, Mike, mine's about 365. So. All right, does anybody have anything else? And if not, we'll go ahead and say adios and 73 to everybody. And thank you for attending this year, and look forward to seeing you hopefully in person next year.
One last thing.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I want to be first in line so I don't have a standard to live up to.
You got to get there early, buddy. Get there about 8 o'clock.
All right, we're out of
All
here.
right. All right, everybody. Well, in that case, if we have nothing else, everybody say goodbye. We'll say adios. I'm going to wave too. Still not used to this camera yet. And we'll see you all.